Happy Sunday! I believe it's just about 11:11. Thought I'd come out to the Head Hutt and do a little work on the floor this morning, because I feel like it. And as always, I invite you to join me if you feel like it, to whatever degree you feel like it. I encourage you to move your body a little bit, play a little bit in your body. Jiggle some stuff out, wiggle some stuff out, shake it off, let go of some stress, make room for the new stresses that are on the way. And of course, just wishing you a happy Sunday morning. I'm going to start off with a little bit of grounding through my sits bones, and I'm actually sitting up on my feet just for a little variation in posture. Taking me back to my martial arts training days a little bit. I'm going to root myself into the center of the earth through my spine, hang myself from the center of the universe, and I'm going to actually come off these toes and sit down a little bit. Again, I encourage you to find a comfy spot. You can be sitting, you can be standing, you could lay down. I'm probably going to do a little more sitting and maybe some laying down this morning as I work through a little brief stretching and strengthening. Let's start with just a little side swing, since that seems to be what my body wants to do. You can bring the left arm up overhead using this right arm close to the body, and then other direction. I'm going to have to get off my ankles pretty soon, but I'll do a couple more of these just to warm up the spine, checking in with the body. One more on each side. Leaning into the right and leaning into the left. And then I'm going to come off these heels, bring the feet in front for a little crisscross applesauce, I think is what that's called. Let's do a little butterfly. So bringing the palms of the feet together, using the soles of the hands to pull them in close to the body, and pressing those knees down toward the floor, pulling the chest through the shoulders, and still trying to stay nice and rooted in the sits bones, long and strong through the abdomen and the spine, making sure not to crunch up in those shoulders. I like to do a little bouncing, but if bouncing doesn't feel good to you in your legs, then don't do that. Make sure, above all else, to listen to your own body. Sometimes it helps to ask it questions and then listen. Sometimes it's screaming stuff at us, so whatever feels right to you, again, I encourage you to just explore that a little bit. Let's take a couple deep breaths here. Still pressing those knees down. Sometimes I use the elbows, that's what those things are, on the legs to help push those down. Still pulling the chest forward. And I'm going to unwind these legs, bounce out the knees a little bit. Let's do some forward folding over the straight legs. I'm going to first give those knees a little morning rub, just a little love to the knees, and folding from the hips with a straight back, trying to aim my chin toward my toes. You can pull those toes back a little bit if you want to increase that stretch. And then I'm going to round the spine, aiming the forehead toward the knees, just changing that stretch up a little bit. And play with that a couple times. Straight back, chin toward toes, bending from the hips, and then rounded spine, aiming the forehead toward the knees. Again, I like to bounce through this. You bounce if bouncing feels good. Don't bounce if bouncing doesn't feel good. Aiming my chin toward the toes. You can reach for those toes and pull them back a little bit. Helps to breathe and smile if you can remember to do that. And then rounding the spine. Again, aiming the forehead for the knees. Just checking in with the spine today, seeing how it feels. Let's come up, bring the arms overhead, and again do a little side twisting, keeping this left hip rooted onto the ground as I bend over to the right. And then again, rooting that right hip, bending over to the left. The temptation is to lift that hip off as you curve over, but really try to focus on that opposite countering, rooting that opposite hip into the ground. Let's go over to the right again, and over to the left. I had some cupcake last night, which is not on my list of things I'm supposed to eat, and I am feeling it. It's interesting to me that I gave up smoking and drinking at least for a while, and my body feels better for that, but now it's like I'm more sensitive to things like cupcakes. So just goes to show you it's an ongoing process, this living and dying stuff. No matter how you go about it, I think. I'm going to do a little spinal twisting. So setting my right hand in close to the body behind me and using my left hand on my right leg, somewhere on the thigh or the knee, and then twisting through the pelvis, through the torso, through the shoulders, and looking with my eyes back behind that shoulder. Just giving the organs a nice ringing out and a little hello. Hello, organs. How you doing? I think they're doing all right this morning. Let's unwind through the eyes, the shoulders, the torso, and then shake that out a little bit. My lungs felt that, and bringing the left hand in close to the body behind, right hand onto the left thigh or knee, and using that to help provide torque through the pelvis, through the rib cage, through the shoulders, lastly with the neck and the eyes. Looking behind, again, just giving those organs a nice little hug from the inside. Hello, everybody. How you doing? Everybody says they're doing all right this morning, which is good news. It's not always the case. Unwinding that, bringing it back forward. Let's go one more time, twisting. This time I'm going to, I'm going to leave the legs out front. We'll do some different stuff with the legs soon. Again, just trying to increase that twist a little bit using my hand for torque. Coming through the pelvis, through the rib cage, lastly with the neck and the eyes. Really giving the spine a nice little twist. Shaking that out again, and then coming again to the opposite side. Left hand close to the body behind, right hand on knee or thigh, and giving a nice twist through the pelvis, through the rib cage, through the shoulders. I get some nice pops in through there. Looking with my eyes back past that shoulder, and then unwinding the neck, the shoulders, the torso, and the pelvis. Shaking that out. Shake out the legs. Let's bring left foot in close to the groin. Pressing this left heel down toward the ground. Keeping this right leg out forward, straight out from the hip. And I'm going to do a nice forward fold over that leg. Still trying to press this opposite knee down toward the floor. And aiming the chin toward toes at first. Again, you can use the hands if you want to help pull those toes back if you can reach them. Or just try to keep those toes facing up. Sometimes I like to wiggle those around like windshield wipers, get a little variation in the hip, especially if sometimes I get a little Charlie horse back on the back of that leg. A little jiggle wiggle can usually help loosen that up. With a flat back, aiming for those toes, forward folding over that right leg. And then I'm going to curl the spine again, aiming the forehead for the knee. Pulling up in the abdomen a little bit can help round the spine a little. And then one more time, flat back, aiming the chin for the toes, pulling those toes back. Still pressing this knee toward the ground. Really trying to stretch from the hip here, so still releasing through the abdomen, the belly, just letting that go. And now I'm pulling the belly up a little bit, curling the spine, aiming the forehead for the knee. let's come back up and twist a little bit from here. So again, using my left hand on right knee, I'm going to give myself a nice little rub and pat on the back of the sacrum there, and then set that hand down real close to the body and add a little twisting. Again, just saying hello to those internal organs, seeing how that leg up changes that twist a little bit. And then unwinding that, let's come to the other side using my right hand on left knee, putting the left hand close to the body and twisting again. Getting lots of good pops through there this morning. Got some stiffness in the spine. Let's bring this leg out and shake out those knees. Give them a little loving rub and bring in the left foot in close to the groin. Pressing this left knee down, trying to keep evenly centered on both sits bones. Again, the temptation is to lean off one side or the other. I encourage you to just try to focus on still keeping your pelvis evenly pressed onto the floor. Pressing this knee down. Let's do some forward fold over the left side. First, aiming chin toward toes, pulling back on those toes if that feels good for a little increased stretch. And trying to just relax that belly, bending from the hips. And then pulling up in the belly, rounding the spine, aiming that forehead toward knee. Noticing how the two sides are a little different. That's normal for most of us, definitely for me. Now aiming chin toward toes again, increasing that stretch, relaxing in the belly, trying to really stretch through the hips or from the hips. And then pulling the belly up, rounding the spine, aiming the forehead toward knee. Try to relax the shoulders if possible. And one more time, pulling toes back, aiming chin toward toes, releasing the belly, stretching from the hips. And one more time, pulling up in the belly, rounding the spine, aiming the forehead toward the knees. You might notice an increase in your flexibility by now if you're doing this multiple times. Let's come up and add a little twist on this side. So right hand on left knee, left hand, come back and give the sacrum a little pat or a rub, little massage, and then placing that hand down close to the body, twisting through the pelvis, through the rib cage, bringing the eyes back over that shoulder. See if you can see the back of your own shoulder or the back of the wall behind you. Just kind of notice where your range of motion brings your gaze to. See if that changes through the twists. Coming back to center and bringing left hand over to right thigh, bringing right hand in close to the body, and again twisting to that open side, through the pelvis, through the rib cage, through the shoulders, and with the eyes. And unwinding all that. Let's bring this leg out front again, bounce out these knees, give the knees a little more love, and then let's try that forward fold again. From the hips, relaxing the belly, trying to stay even on both sits bones. You can jiggle them around and check a little bit. If that helps, it helps me. And then aiming the chin toward toes, pulling those toes back a little bit. You can reach out onto the legs to help pull the body, or just leave the arms at your sides, whatever feels more comfortable. You might try a little of each and see. And then rounding the spine, pulling up in the belly a little bit and aiming the forehead for the knees. And again, flat back, relaxing the belly, stretching from the hips, pulling the toes back. Don't forget to breathe and smile. However, whatever else you're doing. One more time, rounding the spine, aiming forehead for knees. Let's come up with all that and bounce those knees out again. Let's bring those knees up in close and come up over the feet into a squat position. I think this is an underappreciated position that humans used to do a lot more and now sometimes don't do at all. Using my knees, my elbows and my knees. I'm using my elbows on my knees, to help push those knees apart a little bit while still pushing down with the heels. I'm pretty flexible through the ankles, but you might find if you're not that it's some work to just balance on the toes and be pressing those heels toward the floor. I'm going to be using my elbows on my knees to help pull the chest forward. That's a great release for the low back and for the ankles. To just play around a little bit with stretching the back in this position. And let's come up over those knees onto flat feet into a forward fold. I'm going to scooch back because I'm probably going to get out of camera here. I can't focus on the ground and the top at the same time in this little frame. Just shaking that out a little bit. And then let's roll on up. One vertebra at a time, stacking on the next. Just checking in with the whole spine. Let's do a little twisting here, side to side. And then I'm going to come on down again with a flat back this time, bending from the hips again, all the way down into that forward fold. Hanging here for a breath or two. Let's do a little twisting here over to the left side. Can use hands on legs to help twist. Over to the right side, gently. Let's come over to the left side again, and this time raising the left hand up above for a variation on that organ massage or twist. Just still checking in with the spine and the organs and the legs and the arms. Coming over left hand on right foot and right hand up, gazing past those fingertips. Coming back down, and I'm going to bend the knees, come onto the knees, and do some cat-cows, they're called. So first placing hands under shoulders, fingers nice and wide, making sure the knees are under the hips. For straight back, like table position, can relax those toes behind you. And then I'm going to pull up in the belly, up in the pelvic floor, rounding the spine, pushing with those hands, spreading the shoulder blades apart. Just getting a nice cat-like stretch through the spine. And then, this is often called the cow, where you dip the spine the opposite way, tipping the tailbone toward the back of the head, lifting the chest, lifting the eyes, letting the belly drop. Try to relax the belly there. Feels good through my low back. And let's do a couple rounds of that. Breathing in. And then out. Pressing through the shoulders. Pulling up in the belly. Pulling up in the pelvic floor. And then again, breathing out. And in. Tipping the tailbone toward the back of the head. Lifting the chest. Lifting the eyes. One more time. Cat stretch. Pushing up through the shoulders. Tucking in the tailbone. Pulling up in the abdomen and the pelvic floor. Really stretching through the spine. Pressing. And then letting the belly relaxed. Dipping the pelvis. Just letting go of those belly muscles. Tipping the tailbone toward the back of the head. Lifting the head and the eyes. Lifting the chest. Making sure not to sink in those shoulders. And then let's come back to neutral tabletop position. Let's do a little bit of balancing here. So I'm going to start with left hand and right knee left on the ground, and then bringing out the left leg and right hand. Trying not to lift that. Whoa, it's my massage table over there. Trying not to lift that left hip, but just lift the left leg, keeping these hips relatively parallel to the floor. Just doing a little stretching and balancing, or strengthening and balancing there. A little of all of the above. Let's bring that back down, place those on the ground, and shift the weight over. Still try not to shift too much. Again, try not to open that hip, but keeping the hip closed and just lifting the leg. Raising the arm to help balance that. And just noticing again how the two sides are different, how they're the same, how they all work together to do work on either side. Let's bring that down and do both sides again. Lifting the left leg and the right arm. Looking for a straight line sensation out the fingertips, through the spine, out those toes. Try not to lift the hip, but keeping that down and just lifting the leg behind the body. You can play with lifting that higher or lower. See how that feels through your pelvis. And setting that down. Again, fingers are wide, hand is supportive under the shoulder, knee is supporting under the hip. And again, try not to open the hip, but keeping the hips parallel as possible. And straight line sensation out the fingertips, through the spine, through the toes. Play a little bit with different heights of lifting that leg there. If you want to feel for the difference, you can play a little bit with tipping that pelvis and see how that feels different. And bringing all that back down. I'm going to bring the knees forward a little bit and sit on the knees. Sit on the feet, rather. On the knees bent, sitting on the feet in what is sometimes called Saison. If that's not comfortable, you can sit any way you want, or sometimes it's more comfortable to bring those feet out from under the butt. Make sure you're respecting your knees if that's not comfortable for your knees. Kind of brings a different stretch to it all. I'm going to come back onto those feet because that's actually more comfortable for me. And I'm going to bring hands behind back, rolling shoulder blades towards each other, pulling elbows towards each other, clasping hands. Let's do a little back counter stretching, and then I'm going to bend forward, rolling spine, bringing those hands up, aiming my forehead toward my knees, trying to round through the spine, just getting a nice stretch through the chest. You could practice pulling up in the hips here and change that stretch up and bring the forehead all the way to the floor. I'm going to keep my hips down and just aiming my forehead for my knees. Bring the hands down on the sides of the legs for what's often called a child pose. Just relax here. Bring the body up again. I'm going to swing these legs out to the side and get off my feet because that's sometimes tricky on the ankles. Bounce these out a little bit. Thank you for the love. I appreciate that. I think I'm going to do some headstand off camera because I'm still getting back into practice with that. But again, I encourage you to move your body, play in your body, listen to your body. Love yourself. Give yourself your own unconditional love first, foremost, always and always, because you are the one thing you can't live without. And you're worth it. I wish you a peaceful, productive, playful Sunday, or whatever day you're into today. And thank you for stopping by. It's good to see some of you out there. Good morning. I'll be seeing you.